Bienvenidos a todos a este programa, esta clase televisada de español. Y nosotros esta noche es un momento muy importante. Nosotros hemos llegado por fin, después de tantos meses de trabajo, al fin de la totalidad de los 60 verbos que tienen que aprender este año. Vamos a trabajar bastante con estos verbos al principio de la clase y después yo voy a explicar por qué ellos son tan importantes. Yo les voy a mostrar también por medio de un correo electrónico por qué estos verbos son tan importantes también. Entonces, ¿están listos? Empleen las manos para empezar, para prepararnos un poquito y después vamos a ver si ustedes conocen muy bien estos verbos. Repitan conmigo y por favor empleen las manos. Empleen las manos. Vivir. Bien. Hacer. Bien. Escuchar. Así es. Lavar, decir, preparar, comer, gustar, mirar, poner, tomar, abrir, después salir, quedarse, partir, adiós, caminar, huir, ver, conocer, venir, encontrar, hablar, ir, vender, querer, comprar, tener, dar, llegar, entrar, subir, después sentarse, aprender, estudiar, leer, pensar, comprender, preguntar, ayudar, saber, escribir, buscar, perder, buscar, encontrar. Después, levantarse, olvidar, dejar, bajar, jugar, comenzar, correr, terminar. Después, volver, trabajar. Después, estar, cerrar, abrir, cerrar. Bien. Beber. Después, tocar. Bueno, tocar es esto. Tocar el violín. Tocar. Y por fin, dormir. Why are these 60 verbs so important? And what does it mean to truly know them? Now, if you know these verbs in the sense that you have an idea in your head of what you want to express. And this idea, by the way, looks basically like this. And then the second step, you put it in English and you say, this means to buy. I want to buy something. And then the third step, you say, to buy. Well, comprar. And that's the way you speak in dealing with Spanish-speaking people. You're going to be very disappointed if that's the knowledge of these 60 verbs you have, for two reasons. First, because you're going to speak in a in a manner which is too slow. People aren't going to want to wait for you to find your words. Secondly, you're going to say awkward things. If you have a three-step process in your mind, an idea, you put it in English, and you translate to Spanish or French or whatever the language is, you're going to say very awkward, embarrassing things, like the time I was at the table in France. I think I told you it's the first class. Maybe you missed it. And I was a 16-year-old boy in France as an exchange student. And I sat down at the table on Sunday. We had a usual big Sunday dinner in the Dupré family where I was living for the summer. At the end of the meal, they just, as usual, stuffed me with food because they wanted to make sure that skinny as I was at that point, they didn't want me to go home dying of hunger to the States. And so Mrs. Dupré kept stuffing me with food. And finally, she comes to the last course, tries to give me more. And I want to say, no, Mrs. Dupré, no, please, I'm full. And I said, let's see, no thanks. No merci. I am a je suis full. Oh, yeah, like a bottle is full. Plein. No merci, je suis plein. And they all started roaring with laughter at me because I just told them, no thanks, I'm drunk. When I really wanted to say, no thanks, I'm full. And so that's the kind of thing you're going to end up saying if you know these 60 verbs and many other vocabulary words in the wrong fashion. You don't have an instantaneous recall of them in a two-step process from thought directly to the language you're learning, the target language. Well, let's test your knowledge a little bit. You repeated with me. I think the Ralia students know the first 30 verbs very well. The last 30, especially the last 16, which are brand new, much less so. But let's see how much you do know as we go turn to a PowerPoint presentation here, which gives you about 2 seconds. You're going to see the image of me doing a gesture, and you're going to see a little picture down in the corner that gives you the context of that action. Try and say the word before I say it and before you see it in print on the screen. Here we go. Vivir. Hacer. Remember, you're saying these before me and before the screen. Escuchar. Lavar. Decir. You got 2 seconds per screen. Let's see if you can do it. Preparar. Comer. Gustar. Mirar. Poner. Tomar. Abrir. Salir. Quedarse. Partir. Caminar. Oír. Ver. Conocer. Venir. Encontrar. Hablar. Ir. Vender. Querer. Comprar. Tener. Dar. Llegar. Entrar. About halfway through. Hang in there. Subir. Sentarse. Pensar. No, eso es aprender, aprender, perdón. Estudiar. Leer. Pensar. Preguntar. Ayudar. Comprender. Saber. Escribir. Perder. Buscar. Encontrar. Levantarse. Olvidar. Dejar. Bajar. Jugar. Comenzar. Correr. Terminar. Volver. Trabajar. Ser. Estar. Cerrar. Beber. Tocar. Y por fin, dormir. Bien. Entonces, why are these verbs so important? Let's try to find the next slide here. Oh, here we go. I want to tell you about a project which we're starting to work on at Ralya, which I think has great potential. We're putting together for our exchange school in Mexico City, the Instituto Thomas Jefferson, putting together personal presentations in PowerPoint of our own lives. You might say these are a little more living kind of a letter that we can send to our school in Mexico City. A chance for them to see what the life of a typical teacher or student is like in America, as well as to read English, a text about our lives. These are, because of all the color pictures in a PowerPoint presentation, really much more lively than a traditional letter. So here you see some sample slides from the PowerPoint presentation I made about my own life. Told about where Michigan is located, told them, I have to always think with the perspective of a student from Mexico City, what might they not know that we take for granted, like where the Great Lakes are, where Michigan is in relation to Canada. Told about my home. Notice a couple of things. I'm leading up to the idea of suggesting that students at Ralya create their own PowerPoint presentations about their life for us to send to Mexico City. So notice a couple of things in this presentation. Notice that I don't just say, this is my house, but I provided a lot of information about the yard, the size of the yard, the fact we have a large vegetable garden, when the house was built, that sort of thing. Secondly, notice that I used white text on a dark background, and I also used a very simple font, one which the student is struggling just to understand English. We don't want to have a fancy text which is going to make it difficult for them to understand. Notice also that I made the picture as large as I could without it becoming blurry. So if you're interested as a student at Ralya, or conceivably at Murphy as well, as if that project should be taken up there as well, if you'd like to make a PowerPoint presentation about your own life for us to put on CD and send it to our exchange program and exchange school in Mexico City, these are the things you need to bear in mind. You need to have PowerPoint, of course, or you could conceivably use Word, creating a report about yourself. Secondly, try and keep it within a limit of 15 megas. Nothing any larger than that, preferably. Probably each photo would want to be to have a definition such that it would be no larger than, I put 500 mega, I meant 500 KB, as far as bytes of 1,000 bytes of information. Easy to read text. Keep it on a light text with a dark background with a light text, or the other way around, whatever it happens to be. And keep it as simple as far as the font is concerned. No timing. Make sure your PowerPoint presentation has no timing where it automatically transitions to a next slide, because the teacher in Mexico City who shows these presentations to their student, who his or her student will want to be able to move through it at the pace that he wants to choose. And last of all, no specific addresses. Very important. No specific data. Avoid using, including your email address or your telephone number or your street address or even your last name. There's no need to give all this information out, never knowing to whom in whose hands this might eventually fall. So you want to keep it a general kind of a presentation. So let me show you why these 500 verbs that we've been learning, 500 verbs, it feels like it. These 60 verbs we've been learning are so critical. Here's an email from the school in Mexico City that we received this last week. It's from the principal of the elementary school in Mexico City, the Instituto Thomas Jefferson. She wrote the following: I'm going to highlight every time you hear a verb, which is among the 60 we've studied this year, in her email. I'm going to highlight it and remind you what that verb is. The form will be slightly different, but listen as I read through this. Hola, Steven. Te quería, there you see, querer. Te quería comentar que he recibido las cartas de tus alumnos. ¿Cómo sabrás? There you see, saber. Es bien tardado el correo en México. Si por alguna razón se devolvió, there we have within that word the verb volver, which we just learned. Se devolvió el paquete que mandaste con gusto, which is of course related to gustar. Con gusto te puedo dar, and there's the verb dar, we've learned, la dirección del kinder, ya que es más sencilla y está localizado en un lugar muy céntrico de la ciudad que todos conocen, and here we have the verb conocer. Tal vez sería mejor que mandaras toda correspondencia por mensajería, FedEx, por ejemplo. Si no te autorizan el gasto, puedo investigar si me autorizan absorber parte del costo. What I wanted to point out were two things in this email. And I could go on and you'd see other verbs that we have studied in the past few months together. First thing I want you to notice is the frequency with which these verbs came up. They were, I would say, almost in the majority of the verbs she used within her email. She wasn't thinking of how she could speak in such a way that she would write within the context of her 60 verbs. She wasn't thinking like that. She was just communicating. These verbs we've learned are the most strategic, the most critical for any communication. That's the first thing to notice, the strategic nature of what we've learned this year. Secondly, please notice the content of what she wrote. She wrote as follows. Hello, Stephen. I'd like to mention that we've not received your letters from your students. And by the way, those letters went out along with a CD we sent to them to teach English. They went out last Thursday from the post office here in Hazlitt, so they should be receiving them fairly soon. As you will know, mail tends to be late in Mexico. If for any reason the package is sent back to you, which you mailed, I can give you the address of a school which is an easier address, and which is more centrally located in the city, and which everyone knows. Now, this is what I want you to really notice. Perhaps it would be better if you would send all of your mail to us by message service, like FedEx, for example. If your school will not allow you to spend the money that way, I'll look into whether or not we can absorb part of your cost. That, I say, is impressive. What they're saying there is that communicating with us is so important to them that they're willing to pay for us to mail them letters. I think when there's that kind of an enthusiasm on the part of our exchange school, that we really need to respond. And so the kind of response I'm encouraging right now, in addition to the letters we've already sent, is the creation of these PowerPoint shows. Let me give you a little more information on these PowerPoint presentations that I'd like students at Raleigh to put together. Let's see if I can find the appropriate, here we go. First of all, they're optional. These are optional presentations, no one has to do them. Secondly, of course, only with parental approval. As these presentations are put together, parents need to be involved and of course, need to be in favor of the idea. Next, here's the equipment theoretically needed if you wanted to do it entirely independently at home. You'd, of course, need a computer to make your PowerPoint presentation, such as I made, just like the one I showed you earlier. Secondly, you'd need either a digital camera, so as to take pictures and load them onto your computer, or a scanner to scan paper pictures, which you have already, photographs, which you have already. Thirdly, you'd need PowerPoint, of course, on your computer. You could conceivably use Word as a means of creating a report, something that looks like a report. And then fourthly, you need a CD burner. Why? Because you need to bring the presentation to me at school. And it can't go on a floppy diskette. My presentation, by the way, which was about 20 slides, it was 15 mega in size. Well, that's not going to fit in a floppy diskette. It would take many floppy diskettes to do that. And so a CD burner is what would be helpful. And by the way, I've already had one student bring in her first presentation today. Very nice presentation. I'm really excited to send this to Mexico City, and she brought in it on a CD, which they burned at home. Now, what if you don't have that kind of equipment? Then all you need to do is the following, as a student. If you want to make a presentation of your own life to send to students in Mexico City, and by the way, we're not being unselfish about this. Why are we doing it? We're hoping they're going to respond and send us presentations about their life so we can understand what is the life of a typical young person in Mexico City like. What does their school look like? What's their home look like? Their neighborhood? How do they get to school? What's their daily schedule? That kind of thing. But if you'd like to do one of these presentations but you don't have the equipment, simply take your photographs that you want to use in your presentation, place them inside a plastic bag, along with maybe place your name on a piece of paper in the bag also so I don't lose them or mix them up with someone else's. Close the bag with a twisty, bring it to school, And outside of class, I'll help you digitalize these pictures, either with a scanner, which we have in the computer lab, or with this is not ideal, but with my own digital camera taking a picture of your photograph. It'll be less clear, but nonetheless, we can do it that way. So don't give up if you don't have the equipment. Just bring your pictures to school. Here are guidelines again. 15 mega maximum size for your presentation if you make it at home. Secondly, avoid personal information you don't want just anyone to get a hold of, such as your phone number, your street address, your email address, your last name. And then last of all, keep the text easy to read. Well, that's the focus of what I wanted to emphasize tonight. These 60 verbs, it's great to have mastered them. I hope you'll eventually get to the point where in 90 seconds you can say all 60 of them just looking at pictures of me or looking at me do the gestures. But they're not an end in themselves. They're in order to enable us to create relationship with other people, to get to know people in the Spanish-speaking world. The presentations are a great way to encourage that. I want to make one last plug for a real need that we have. If there are Spanish-speaking people, native speakers or near-native speakers of the language who are watching this program, I would like to ask you please to contact me if you are willing to allow me here on the show to interview you, just like I did Ricardo Bryce a few weeks ago. Richard Bryce was here and asked him very simple questions about his life. The students need to start to use Spanish in getting to know other people. If you will come in and allow me to interview you, I'll bring students with me who themselves will ask the questions of you. For example, simple questions using these 60 verbs. For example, bueno, ¿cómo decir? Lavas tú los platos en la casa, preparas tú la comida, preparas tú el desayuno, ¿qué más? ¿Vives tú en Okemos o en Hazlet? ¿Dónde vives tú? Simple questions. If you'd be willing to allow us to interview you, please contact me at Ralia as a native Spanish speaker or a near native speaker. And that would be a really enriching thing for our students to be able to experience. Eso es todo para esta noche. Entonces, muchas gracias por su presencia. Entonces, adiós y hasta la vista.